Part 1. He kept denying it, but his actions told a different story. I didn't expect him to sit that close. Not in a room full of people. Not when he always kept his distance. But there he was, sitting just inches from me, his leg brushing mine like it meant nothing. I told myself it was an accident, a fluke, but it wasn't. His name was Caleb Monroe, captain of the swim team. Straight. At least, that's what he said. And me? I was the quiet kid who edited the yearbook and drank way too much iced coffee. Name's Jordan Rivers. And I had no business thinking about a guy like him. But from the very first moment he looked at me, really looked at me, I knew something wasn't normal. Something in his eyes didn't match the things he said out loud. The first time we talked was in the hallway. He bumped into me by accident, or maybe not. "Hey," he said, steadying me with both hands. "You all right?" I nodded, heart thudding. His touch lingered, but he pulled away like it never happened. A week later, we were paired for a media class project, and somehow, that's when everything started to fall apart, or maybe come together. I remember him texting me one night, "You free? Need help editing that clip." I said sure, but I didn't think he'd actually come over. An hour later, he was in my room, sitting on my bed, laughing at my dumb jokes, wearing a black hoodie and a grin that made me forget my own name. And then he said it. "You know I'm not gay, right?" He said it casually, like it was just a fun fact. I swallowed hard, tried to act cool. "Okay," I replied, eyes glued to the screen. Didn't ask. But I could feel him watching me, like he wanted a reaction. That night, nothing happened. But it was the beginning of everything. 3 days later, he texted again. "You free tonight?" I asked what for. He replied, "Don't worry, just trust me." When he showed up this time, he brought snacks and 2 horror DVDs. "I don't like watching alone," he said with a smirk. Again, I didn't ask. We sat on my bed, lights low. Halfway through the movie, he flinched and grabbed my wrist. But he didn't let go, even when the scary part ended. His fingers stayed wrapped around mine, like he forgot what he was doing. My chest felt tight. I wanted to say something, but I was afraid if I did, he'd snap back to reality. So I just sat there, frozen. Eventually, he pulled away, cleared his throat, said, "Sorry." Reflex. But he didn't look sorry. The next morning at school, he acted normal, laughing with the guys, flirting with girls in the hallway. But every time our eyes met, I swear there was something in the way he looked at me. Later that week, something strange happened. He invited me to his house. Not for the project. Not with anyone else. Just me. I remember stepping into his room. It smelled like cedar and cologne. Clean, comfortable. He closed the door behind me, locked it. I turned around slowly. His eyes were already on me. Then he asked something I didn't expect. "Do people think you're like into guys?" I hesitated. "Some do," I said. "Why?" He shrugged. "No reason. Just curious." But that wasn't true. He wasn't just curious. He was afraid of something. Maybe afraid of himself. The last thing he said before I left that night, "Don't tell anyone you were here." I said okay, but deep down I knew something had shifted. This wasn't just 2 classmates hanging out. This wasn't just straight guy being friendly. It was something else, something unspoken, something real. And that's when it started. The late night texts, the quiet moments between jokes, the stares that lasted too long. He said he wasn't gay. But he kept coming back, and I kept letting him. Want to know what happened next? It only got more complicated from here. If you ever had someone say, "I'm not gay," but act like they felt something, you need to hear what happened next. This story is real. It's messy. It's emotional. And trust me, you won't believe what Caleb did in next parts. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me. Because sometimes the people who say, "I'm not gay," are the ones hiding the biggest truths. The next night, he didn't text. And I told myself I didn't care. But I checked my phone more times than I want to admit. Each time, hoping his name would light up the screen. It didn't. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not until just after midnight. "You up?" 3 words. That's all it took to make my pulse race. I didn't reply immediately. I wanted to play it cool, but I failed. "Yeah. Can I come over?" I stared at the screen. He didn't say why. Didn't even pretend it was about the project this time. And still, I said yes. 15 minutes later, he was in my room again. Hood up, eyes tired, shoulders tense like he'd been fighting a war in his head. I didn't ask questions. I just moved over on the bed and made room. He sat down slowly, then leaned back against the wall with a heavy sigh. "I can't sleep," he said quietly. "Too much noise in my head." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. We just sat there, in the dark, in silence. Then, out of nowhere, he whispered, "I wish things were simpler." I turned toward him, saw the way his jaw clenched, the way his eyes stayed on the ceiling, like he couldn't look at me. "What do you mean?" I asked. He shrugged. "Just life, people, expectations." His voice cracked a little, and that's when I realized he wasn't just tired. He was breaking. After a long pause, he added, "Sometimes I wish I could just disappear for a while, be somewhere no one knows me, where I don't have to explain anything." I didn't know what had happened that day, but I could tell something had pushed him to the edge. And somehow, he came to me. Without thinking, I reached over, not to hold his hand, not to pull him in, just to let my fingers barely touch his on the blanket. He didn't move away, didn't say a word, didn't even blink. Minutes passed. Our fingers never fully intertwined, but they didn't separate either. It was quiet, and then he whispered, "Does anyone know about you?" I hesitated. My throat felt dry. Some people, not everyone. He nodded, still looking at the ceiling, then said, "Do you hate it?" "Hate what?" "Being different." That word, different, sat between us like a stone. Heavy, unspoken. I took a deep breath. "No," I said, "not anymore." He nodded slowly, and then he finally looked at me. For the first time that night, our eyes locked. Something passed between us. Not a confession, not an answer, but something real, raw. He stayed the night. Fully clothed, no touching, no lines crossed. But when I woke up, his head was resting against my shoulder, and our hands were tangled. He didn't say anything when he left that morning, just looked at me like he wanted to, but couldn't. Then he was gone. At school, things were strange. He didn't talk to me, didn't even glance in my direction. But that night, the text came again. "You up?" Same time, same pattern, same silence he left behind earlier that day. And just like before, I said yes. Even though I knew what I was walking into. Even though I knew I'd probably walk out with more questions than answers. I still opened the door when he showed up. He didn't say a word when he stepped inside. He just sat down on my bed and exhaled. And then he said something that caught me completely off guard. "You make me feel safe." I didn't move, didn't speak, because I didn't want to break the moment. I just let it hang in the air. He looked at me, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them, and whispered, "That scares me." I wanted to ask why, but part of me already knew. People like Caleb weren't allowed to feel what I felt. Not in his world, not under the image he'd built for everyone else. But somehow, when it was just us, he let that guard drop. And every time he did, he came a little closer. But I also knew the closer he got, the more dangerous it would become. I told myself I wasn't falling for him, that he was confused, lost, and I was just the one he trusted to lean on. But the way he looked at me that night, it wasn't confusion. It was hunger, fear, hope, all wrapped into one moment. We were sitting side by side. No movie on this time. No fake excuse. Just him and me and the unbearable tension between us. He glanced down at our hands, resting on the bed, inches apart. I used to think I knew who I was, he said. Now I'm not so sure. I swallowed, carefully. What changed? His eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for a second, just a second, he let the mask drop. You did. That silence afterward felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I could have stepped back, played it safe, changed the subject. But I didn't. I whispered, "You scare me too, Caleb." He stared at me, and then, slowly, he reached for my hand. Not by accident. Not because he flinched at a horror movie. Not because he was falling asleep. This time it was real, intentional. His fingers slid between mine like they'd always belonged there. And the room got very, very quiet. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said softly. "Neither do I admitted, "but I'm here." He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but didn't. Instead, he leaned in, so slowly, so unsure, that I could have stopped it 100 different ways. But I didn't. Our lips touched. It wasn't a kiss, not at first. It was barely contact, just breath, just hesitation. But then he pressed in, and everything around us disappeared. For a few seconds, it felt like flying, like I was finally somewhere I belonged. But when he pulled away, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. His eyes were wide, his face pale, his chest rising and falling too fast. I shouldn't have done that," he said quickly. He stood up, started pacing, rubbing his hands through his hair. "I don't even know what that was," he muttered. I sat frozen, heart racing, fighting every instinct to either pull him back or tell him to leave. "I kissed you," he finally said, staring at the floor. "I kissed you." I stood up slowly, reached for his hand again. He pulled away. "You're not a mistake, Caleb," I said. "You're not broken." He shook his head. "You don't get it. My dad, my friends, everyone, they think I'm this person I'm not even sure I am anymore." His voice cracked, eyes glassy. "If they ever found out." I didn't say anything, because what do you say when someone's whole world is held together by fear? I just took a step forward and hugged him. At first, he stood stiff, frozen, like he didn't know how to accept it. But then he melted into me, and for the first time, he cried. He stayed again that night, but this time it was different. He didn't sleep on the edge of the bed. He didn't flinch when I reached for his hand in the dark. He held it tight, like he didn't want to let go. And he whispered just before sleep, "I don't know what this means, but I don't want it to end." The next morning, though, everything shattered. We were walking through the school parking lot, trying to keep space between us, pretending like we didn't know each other outside class. But his best friend, Zach, saw us, saw something. Maybe it was the way Caleb looked at me. Too soft, too long. Or maybe it was nothing, and Zach just knew. He called out to him, "Yo, Caleb, you good?" Caleb stiffened. His eyes darted to me, then back to Zach. "Yeah," he said quickly, "just heading to class." And then he turned to me with eyes full of apology and walked away. He didn't look back. That was the day everything changed. Because once you cross a line like that, there's no going back. Part 2. The day after the kiss, he didn't text, didn't show up, didn't even glance in my direction at school. It was like I'd vanished, like none of it had ever happened. But I knew better. I knew what I felt. I knew what he felt, even if he was too scared to admit it. That week was brutal. Every time I passed him in the hallway, he looked straight through me. But his eyes, they weren't cold. They were afraid. Afraid of being seen. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of me. I tried telling myself to move on, to stop waiting for a text that wouldn't come, to stop checking my door after midnight. But at night, I still left my phone screen facing up, just in case. I hated myself for it, for hoping, for caring. But when someone lets you see the part of themselves they buried, you can't unsee it. It was Friday afternoon when it finally happened. I was in the library, editing a video for the yearbook, headphones on, focused. Then someone slid into the seat across from me. I looked up, and there he was, Caleb. Hair messy, hood up, eyes red like he hadn't slept. I pulled off my headphones slowly, unsure if I was dreaming. "Hey," he said, voice low. I stared at him, didn't answer. Because what do you say to someone who kissed you and disappeared? He cleared his throat. "I'm sorry." I folded my arms. "You should be..." I panicked, he whispered. "I didn't mean to ghost you." "But you did." He looked down at the table, fingers tapping restlessly. "I've never felt like that before," he said. "I mean, I have, but not like that. Not with anyone." He paused, then added, "Especially not a guy." That silence between us came back. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was waiting. "I'm not asking you for anything," I finally said. "I just wanted honesty, not confusion, not shame." He nodded, eyes still down, like he couldn't bear to look at me. "I know. You deserve better." For a second, I thought he was about to walk away again. But then he said something that shook me. "I told Zach." I blinked. "What?" I told him. About us. About the kiss. My stomach dropped. You what?" I had to. He saw the way I looked at you. He asked me straight up, and I didn't want to lie. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. "And what did he say?" Caleb's lips curled into a sad smile. He said, "I kind of figured. Took you long enough." That moment cracked something open in me. Not because Zach knew, but because Caleb chose to tell him. That meant something. "I'm still scared," he admitted. "I don't know what this is, Jordan, but I know I can't pretend it didn't happen." He looked up finally and whispered, "Can we talk? Just you and me?" We ended up back in my room that night. Same bed, same silence. But this time, there was no weight to it. Just curiosity, nervous energy. He sat with his knees pulled to his chest, like a kid, and I sat beside him, waiting. "I think I've always known," he said quietly, "but I fought it because of my dad, because of what people expect from me." He turned his head. "I'm not saying I'm ready to shout to the world. I'm not, but I want to figure this out. With you." I felt my heart catch, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. So I asked him, "You sure you're not just lonely?" He shook his head. "No, I'm sure I'm scared. But I'm not lonely, not when I'm with you." That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We just talked until 3 a.m. about everything, about nothing, about who we were before the world told us who to be. And when he fell asleep beside me, his head barely resting against mine, I didn't feel confused anymore. I felt chosen. But the truth was, not everyone would understand. And we were about to find out exactly what happens when secrets stop being secrets. We were careful. Or at least we thought we were. No text during school hours. No sitting too close in class. No sneaking looks in the hallway. And definitely no more late-night visits through the front door. It was all silent agreement, an unspoken rule. Whatever we were stayed hidden, but secrets have a way of leaking out. And sometimes the smallest crack is all it takes. It happened during a group hangout at Zach's place of all places. A Friday night chill session. Bonfire, backyard, cheap pizza, and too many energy drinks. Caleb said it was important we show up together, so it wouldn't look weird. But that was the first mistake. I remember the way he stood next to me at the edge of the firelight. Close. Too close. And I remember the way Eli, one of Caleb's teammates, looked at us. That calculating stare. Later, when everyone was inside watching a movie, I stepped out to get a drink from the kitchen. And that's when Eli cornered me. "You and Caleb got close lately, huh?" His tone was too casual, his eyes too sharp. I played dumb. Yeah, we're project partners. You know how it is. But he didn't smile, didn't nod, just said, he doesn't act like that with just friends. My throat went dry. I turned away, mumbling something about getting a soda, but I could feel it, like heat on the back of my neck. He knew. When Caleb and I left together that night, I tried to warn him. He was watching us. I said, like really watching. Caleb didn't respond at first, just gripped the steering wheel tighter. Let him watch, he muttered eventually. But the tremble in his voice told me everything. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. A string of missed calls from Caleb. 3 texts, all in a row. You up? Something happened. Please don't check Snapchat. But I did. And what I saw turned my stomach cold. It was a blurry photo. Grainy. Nighttime. But unmistakable. It was us at Zach's bonfire, standing too close. My hand resting on Caleb's back. Posted with a caption. Guess the rumors were true. I froze. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I called Caleb. He picked up immediately. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I swear, I didn't know anyone saw. Lie, I said, jaw clenched. I know. It didn't take long for the rumors to spread. By lunch, whispers were following us down the halls. People who never even noticed me before suddenly stared like I was on display. Some laughed, some just looked away. And Caleb, he was gone. He didn't show up to lunch, didn't reply to my texts, didn't answer when I knocked on his door after school. But late that night, just past 2 a.m., he called. I'm not okay, he said, voice cracked, breath shaking. Come over, I told him. Now, please. 10 minutes later, he was in my room again, pacing, rambling, freaking out. My dad saw it, the post. He asked if it was real. I held my breath. What did you say? He stopped pacing, looked at me, eyes red, voice hoarse. I lied. He collapsed onto the floor, hands in his hair, mumbling. I said it was edited, a prank. I couldn't say it, Jordan. I couldn't. My chest ached, but I didn't yell, didn't snap, because I understood. I sat beside him, quiet, present, and after a long silence, he leaned into me, forehead against my shoulder. Do you hate me? He whispered. No, I whispered back, but I hate that you're hurting. That night, I held him while he cried. Held him like I'd never get the chance again. Because the truth was, this secret we shared was now a weapon, and the world had found it. The next day was silent. No calls, no texts, no Caleb. I walked through school like a ghost. The whispers hadn't stopped. If anything, they'd gotten worse. But what hurt the most was his silence. After school, I sat in my room staring at my phone, willing it to buzz, waiting for his name to appear. It didn't. I almost gave up. But then, just after 8 p.m., it lit up. Can I come over? I didn't even reply, just typed one word. Yes. He showed up 15 minutes later, face pale, eyes rimmed red. This wasn't just anxiety. It was something else. He sat down slowly on the edge of my bed, hands clenched tight in his lap. Then he said, My dad knows. I felt my heart stop. What did he say? Caleb looked at me, not like before, not with fear, not with softness, but like someone who had just barely survived a storm. He sat me down, didn't yell, didn't scream, just stared at me and said, We need to talk. Caleb let out a shaky breath. He asked if I was gay. I stayed silent, waiting. I couldn't lie again, Caleb whispered. I just nodded. A beat passed. Then he said, You need to fix this before it ruins your life. My throat tightened, hard. He meant you, Jordan, Caleb said softly. He told me to stop seeing you. Said it was a phase. Said I'm not that kind of boy. He stood up, started pacing again, I tried to explain it wasn't just about labels, that I don't even know what I am yet. But he didn't care. To him, it was black and white. He stopped, looked at me, and for a moment, he looked like a little kid again. Lost. Alone. I don't want to lose him, he whispered. But I don't want to lose you either. Those words hit me harder than I expected. Because deep down, I knew this would come. You shouldn't have to choose, I said gently. No one should make you feel like loving someone is a crime. He blinked fast, but the tears still came. I told him I wasn't going to stop seeing you, he said, voice shaking. I said you were the only person I could be real with. My heart jumped, but I didn't smile. Not yet. What did he say to that? I asked. Caleb looked down at the floor. He told me to get out. I stood up slowly, crossed the room, placed a hand on his back. He flinched, but didn't pull away. He kicked me out, Jordan. I've got nowhere to go. I didn't even hesitate. You're staying here tonight. He looked up, eyes wide, surprised. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. I gave him a blanket, a spare pillow, but we both knew he wouldn't be sleeping on the floor. We laid on the bed, side by side, saying nothing, just breathing, existing. It was enough. But in the dark, he whispered something I'll never forget. I think I'm in love with you. I didn't say it back. Not yet. Because I wasn't sure if he meant it, or if it was just the fear talking. But one thing was clear. Caleb had chosen me. And that choice came with consequences. Because the next morning, his dad came looking. Part 3. We were still half asleep when the knock came. 3 sharp hits. Not a friend. Not a sibling. It was the kind of knock that made your stomach drop. Caleb shot upright in bed, eyes wide, breath caught in his chest. I looked at him, and I knew before either of us said anything. It was his dad. I opened my bedroom door quietly. Listen. Another knock, louder this time. Then a voice, firm, low, controlled. Jordan, I know he's in there. My heart nearly stopped. I turned back to Caleb. He was already standing, hands shaking, shoes half on, like his body was acting on instinct before his mind caught up. Don't answer it, he whispered. But my mom beat us to it. I heard the front door open, her confused voice. Can I help you? Then his voice. I'm looking for my son. I bolted downstairs, Caleb right behind me. When I turned the corner, his dad was standing in the doorway, tall, stiff, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He looked past my mom, past me, straight at Caleb. Get in the car, he said. No hello, no apology, just command. Caleb didn't move. I said, get in the car. His dad repeated, louder now. I'm not going anywhere until you calm down, Caleb replied, voice steady but soft, terrified. His dad took a step forward. My mom stepped in between them. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. This is my home. He ignored her. You want to throw your life away for this? He snapped, glaring at me. Something in me burned, but Caleb beat me to it. No, he said, I want to stop hiding. I want to stop lying. His dad laughed bitterly. Lying? You think this is truth? My mom stepped forward, her voice calm, firm. I think your son is trying to live with honesty, and maybe that's something you're not ready to hear. His dad's face darkened. Caleb, he said, softer this time, come home, before you do something you can't undo. I held my breath. Caleb looked at him, then at me, then at my mom. And then he said, voice shaking but clear, this is my home now. Silence. His dad's eyes flared, but he didn't shout again, didn't argue. He just turned and walked away. The door shut, and everything went quiet. My mom turned to us, still in her robe, arms crossed. Then she sighed. All right, so which one of you is making the coffee? We laughed, not because it was funny, but because the tension needed somewhere to go. For the first time, Caleb smiled. Later that afternoon, we sat on the back steps, sun warm on our faces, legs brushing, hands barely touching. He turned to me and whispered, "Thank you for not letting me run." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "You didn't need me to stop you. You just needed someone to stand beside you." And in that moment, it felt like we might finally be okay. But peace doesn't last long when the world's watching. Because someone else saw the post too. Someone neither of us expected. I was halfway through third period when the intercom crackled to life. "Jordan Michaels, please report to the front office." Heads turned, a few raised eyebrows. Someone whispered, "Oof." I stuffed my notebook in my bag and stood up, tried to act normal, tried not to panic. But something about the tone, the timing, made my stomach twist. The walk down the hallway felt endless. I passed Caleb's locker, still empty, still untouched since Friday. And all I could think was, please don't let this be about him. I stepped into the front office. The secretary gave me a stiff smile. "Mr. Blanchard will see you now." Mr. Blanchard, vice principal, disciplinary lead, and probably the least warm person I'd ever met. He sat behind his desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. "Have a seat, Jordan." I sat, carefully, trying to breathe evenly. He tapped a folder on his desk, but didn't open it. "This isn't a punishment," he said, "but I want to talk to you about something important." I blinked. "Okay." He leaned back in his chair. "We've been made aware of some social media activity involving you and another student." There it was. My throat went dry. I nodded, slowly, didn't say a word. "Specifically, a photo that's been circulating online," he continued. "One that's raised some concerns about harassment, privacy, and safety." My eyebrows pulled together. "Safety?" He nodded. "Yes, we've had multiple reports, anonymous and otherwise, that certain students have been making inappropriate comments, some even threatening." My heart jumped. "About Caleb?" He didn't answer directly, but the silence was enough. "Jordan," he said more gently now, "we have a zero-tolerance policy for bullying or discrimination of any kind. If you or anyone else feels unsafe, you need to let us know." I nodded again, but the only word echoing in my head was threatening. After a moment, I asked quietly, "Is Caleb in trouble?" Mr. Blanchard shook his head. "No, but he hasn't returned our calls. He hasn't been at school since Monday. We're concerned." I looked down at my hands. They were clenched into fists. "Do you know where he is?" he asked. I hesitated, because yes, I did know. He was in my room, sleeping under my roof, still trying to find the strength to face the world again. But I also knew what school officials meant by concern, and I wasn't about to hand him over to people who didn't understand him. So I said, "He's safe. He just needs space." Mr. Blanchard nodded, like he expected that answer. "All right, but if anything escalates, if anyone harasses you, online or off, you come to me directly." I stood. "I will." As I walked out of the office, I passed a group of seniors, whispering near the vending machines. They weren't even trying to hide it. One of them looked me dead in the eye, smirked. "Didn't know you and Golden Boy were that close." I froze, but I didn't respond, because they wanted a reaction, and I refused to give them one. When I got home that afternoon, Caleb was in the kitchen with my mom. They were laughing, just softly, but it felt warm. He looked up when I walked in, eyes full of worry. "You okay?" he asked. I dropped my bag, walked straight to him, and hugged him. A full, real hug. No hesitation. "Some people at school are talking," I said softly, "but I don't care." His arms tightened around me. Then he whispered something I wasn't expecting, then let them talk. That night, he sat on my bed with a notebook open. "I think I need to write my dad a letter," he said. "Not for him, for me, so I can finally say what I couldn't say that night." I nodded, and for the next 2 hours, we wrote it together, line by line, pain by pain, and maybe That was the beginning of his healing. But healing doesn't stop the world from spinning. Because the next day, something happened in the hallway. Something public, something loud, and it pushed Caleb right back into the darkness. We knew it was coming. Eventually, I guess we just hoped we'd get more time. More time to breathe, to figure things out, to just be. But the world doesn't give quiet to boys like us. It waits for the loudest moment to rip everything open. It started like any other day. Caleb came back to school. First time since the photo went around. He kept his head down, hood up, shoulders tense. But he walked in, and that alone was brave. We met up at his locker between second and third period. Didn't talk much, just exchanged a glance that said, "We've got this." We didn't. It happened fast. The moment we turned the corner to head to math, Eli was there, leaning against the wall with two other guys from the team, all of them smirking. "Yo, Caleb," Eli said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Where's your boyfriend? Holding your hand through algebra now." A couple people chuckled. Someone behind us said, "Yikes!" I turned to keep walking, but Caleb stopped, and something shifted in the air. Eli kept going. Couldn't help himself. "Bet you like the locker rooms now, huh? All that towel snapping probably gave you ideas." That's when Caleb dropped his backpack. His fists clenched. "Say it again," he said, voice low, shaking. Eli raised his eyebrows. "Oh, you mad now? You gonna cry about it?" Caleb took a step forward. I said, "Say it again." Eli scoffed. "Fine, you're a FA." But he didn't finish, because that's when Caleb snapped. 1 second he was standing still. The next, he'd shoved Eli hard against the lockers. The crack echoed down the hallway. Everyone froze. I ran forward, grabbed Caleb's arm. "Hey, stop, you'll get suspended." But Caleb wasn't hearing me. Not anymore. He shouted. "I kept my mouth shut for years. I smiled through your jokes, your slurs, your garbage. But you don't get to do this anymore." His voice broke. "You don't get to make me feel like I'm disgusting for finally being honest with myself." The hallway was silent. No one laughed. No one smirked. They just watched. A teacher finally came rushing down the hall, pulled Caleb back, escorted him away. Eli stood there rubbing his jaw, looking more shocked than hurt. I stood frozen, heart pounding, eyes burning. It was the first time Caleb had ever stood up for himself publicly, but I could already see what it was going to cost him. They called me into the office again during lunch, asked me what happened. I told the truth, every word, and then I asked a question no one else seemed willing to say out loud. Why does Caleb get in trouble for defending himself? But no one says anything to the people who push him there. Mr. Blanchard didn't answer, just nodded slowly and dismissed me. I found Caleb sitting on the curb outside after school, suspended for 3 days, mandatory counseling. He looked numb, not sad, not angry, just hollow. I sat beside him in silence. After a long pause, he said, "It wasn't worth it." "Yes, it was," I replied. "Maybe not for them, but for you, it mattered." He nodded slowly, didn't speak, just leaned his head on my shoulder. And I let him, but in that silence, I felt something heavy settle in my chest, because Caleb had fought so hard just to breathe, and the world still wouldn't let him. Part 4. Caleb stayed home for the next 3 days, suspended, grounded, emotionally worn out. I checked on him constantly, sneaking him snacks, sitting by the window late at night, so we could whisper without waking my mom. But even in all that quiet, he seemed heavier. "I thought I'd feel stronger after standing up to him," he said one night. "But now I just feel tired." I nodded. I think sometimes being brave doesn't feel good right away. It just breaks the dam, and all the pain floods out. He didn't say anything, just rested his head on my shoulder again. But on the 3rd day, everything changed. It was around noon. We were sitting on my bedroom floor, playing cards, trying to distract ourselves, laughing, even for a moment. And then Caleb's phone lit up. A name on the screen he hadn't seen in weeks. Jamie, big sis. His whole body froze. I looked at him. You okay? He stared at the screen, then answered. Hey, he said, voice small. There was silence on the other end. Then, Caleb, she said. Her voice was soft, almost shaking. I saw what happened. Someone posted a video from school. I watched Caleb's face change, eyes narrowing, guard going up. Of course they did, he muttered. But Jamie didn't sound angry or judgmental. She sounded sad. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Caleb looked at the floor. I didn't think you'd care. Jamie was quiet. Then she said, I always knew. Caleb blinked fast. What? I knew, Caleb. I've known since we were kids. But I figured when you were ready, you'd tell me. And I'd be right here. Caleb's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Jamie kept going. I'm sorry Dad said what he did. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I just want you to know you're still my brother. Nothing changes that. Tears slipped from Caleb's eyes before he even noticed. One hand over his mouth, trying to breathe. I miss you, he whispered. I miss you too, she replied. Come over tomorrow, please. Just you and me. Let's talk. For real this time. He nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I will. When he hung up, he didn't say anything right away. Just leaned forward, hands on his knees, crying silently. I moved beside him, placed my hand gently on his back, and after a few minutes, he whispered something I hadn't heard him say before. Maybe not all of them hate me. And I smiled. No, not all of them. That night, he wrote another letter. This one wasn't to his dad. This one was to himself. He titled it, Things I Can't Keep Apologizing For. He let me read it. It said things like, I'm done apologizing for who I love. I'm done saying sorry for crying. I'm done pretending I'm not hurt just to protect someone else's pride. It was raw, honest, brave, and for the first time since all of this started, I saw a light come back into his eyes. The next morning, he got dressed early, said goodbye to my mom with a smile, and left to see his sister. I stood at the window and watched him walk away, and I knew something had shifted. Not everything was fixed, but something had begun. When he came back that night, I could tell something was different. He walked through my front door, eyes clear, posture straight, like the weight he'd been carrying had finally lifted, even just a little. I closed my book and looked up. How'd it go? He smiled. A real one. She cried, he said softly. Jamie, she cried when I walked in. I blinked. Good tears. He nodded. Yeah, she hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years. We talked for almost 5 hours. He sank into the couch beside me, still smiling. She told me she's known forever. She just never wanted to force me to say it before I was ready. I nodded. She sounded like a good sister. She is. He went quiet for a second, then added, she's a reason I'm here right now, still breathing. That hit hard, too hard. I didn't say anything, just reached over and grabbed his hand, held it tightly, because sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all. We sat like that for a while, comfortable silence, hands locked, safe, but then he shifted, looked at me carefully, like he was about to drop a bomb. I need to tell you something. I braced myself. Okay? He took a deep breath. After I left Jamie's place, she drove me somewhere. I tilted my head. Where? He looked down at our hands, then whispered, to my dad's. My stomach twisted. You went back. He nodded slowly. I didn't want to, but she said he'd asked to see me. I blinked. Wait, he asked. Yeah, Caleb said. And I was like, no way. He made it pretty clear where he stood. But Jamie told me something. She said after I left, he didn't sleep, didn't eat much. He just kept pacing the house. I stayed quiet, afraid to hope, afraid to believe. He told her he handled everything wrong, that he was scared, angry, but mostly ashamed. Caleb paused, not ashamed of me, ashamed of himself. I stared at him, trying to piece it together. You really believe that? He looked me dead in the eyes. I think I want to. Then he added, he asked to see me again tomorrow. Alone, just him and me. I swallowed hard. What are you going to do? I'm going, he said. No hesitation. No matter what he says, I need to hear it, even if it's not perfect, even if it hurts. I need to know if he's capable of changing. I nodded slowly, because I knew he was right, and also because I was terrified for him. That night, we laid in bed. Lights off, our hands intertwined beneath the covers. I whispered into the dark, if he hurts you again, I'll never forgive him. Caleb whispered back, if he tries, I'll know I can survive it this time. I didn't say it out loud, but in my head, I was already preparing for the worst. But what I didn't know then was that his dad wasn't the only one watching, because the very next day, I got a message from someone I never expected, someone who saw everything, someone who had their own story to tell. The morning Caleb went to see his dad, I stayed behind, didn't ask to come. This was his step, his chapter, his decision. But still, I watched the clock like my heartbeat depended on it. Hours passed. No text, no call, just silence. And then a buzz. But it wasn't from Caleb. It was a DM. From someone I didn't know. No profile pic. Private account. Hey, I know this is random, but I saw the video of your friend Caleb, and I think you should know something. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. I replied, who are you? A minute passed. Then another message came through. You don't know me, but I knew his dad, a long time ago. My blood went cold. They followed up immediately. We were in college together. Roommates, actually, and maybe more than that, though he never said it out loud. I sat up, heart pounding, hands frozen over the screen. Are you saying Caleb's dad is... Another reply. I don't know what label he'd use. But yes, there was something. For almost a year. He ended it. Said it wasn't who he was. That it was a phase. He met a girl a few months later and got married. My mind spiraled. Was that why he reacted the way he did? Was it guilt? Fear? Shame? The message continued. When I saw your video, I knew it had to be his son. He looked just like him. Same anger behind the eyes. I typed slowly. Why are you telling me this? They replied, because maybe he's not angry at his son for being gay. Maybe he's angry his son can be, openly, freely, without hiding the way we did. I stared at those words for a long time. When Caleb finally came back, I met him at the door. He looked exhausted, but lighter. He didn't yell, he said. He didn't shame me. He just listened. I pulled him inside gently. What did he say? Caleb sat down slowly, took off his jacket, ran a hand through his hair. He said he's sorry, that he was raised to believe things that were wrong, that he thought he was protecting me by pushing me away. I swallowed hard. And do you believe him? He looked up, eyes wet. I think I want to. I hesitated, then said softly, there's something else. He blinked. What? I pulled out my phone, showed him the messages. His face changed. At first, confusion, then disbelief, then a long, terrible silence. I never knew, he whispered. I never knew. Do you want to talk to him about it? He stared at the screen. I don't know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then after a beat, but explained so much. He leaned back, let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped for years. I thought he hated me for being different. Maybe he hated himself for being the same. We sat in that truth. Let it settle. Let it sting. But there was something powerful in it, too. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but understanding. And sometimes, that's where healing really begins. Part 5. Friday morning. 2 weeks after everything went down. 2 weeks since the locker shove. the suspension, the silence. And finally, Caleb was going back to school. I thought he'd be nervous, quiet, second-guessing everything like he used to. But when he stepped out of my bathroom, shoes laced, hair clean, eyes sharp, he looked steady. "You good?" I asked. He nodded, adjusting his backpack. Better than I've ever been. We walked in together, side by side. This time, he didn't flinch when people looked, didn't shrink when someone whispered. He just walked, like he belonged. And for the first time, it felt like the hallway wasn't a war zone anymore, until we turned the corner and saw Eli. Same stupid smirk, same posturing. But this time, Caleb didn't stop. He kept walking. And as we passed, Eli muttered just loud enough for us to hear, "Guess someone's back from his little princess break." I paused, but Caleb didn't. He laughed, turned slightly over his shoulder and said, "You still talking, Eli?" Weird how someone so obsessed with me keeps pretending he's not watching. The group around him snorted. Eli turned red, didn't respond. We kept walking. And for the first time in a long time, Caleb looked tall, not just in height, but in spirit. He was done playing small to make others comfortable. At lunch, we sat together in the corner of the cafeteria, as usual. But then something happened. A girl named Tasha, someone we barely knew, walked up. She sat her tray across from us and said, "That clapback? Iconic." Caleb blinked. She grinned. "People are jerks." You said what needed to be said. Then someone else sat down. Then another. And before we knew it, we weren't alone anymore. I looked over at Caleb. He looked stunned, but in a good way. Later, he whispered, "I didn't know anyone had my back." "You never gave him a chance to show it," I replied. After school, we sat on the bleachers. The sun low, air soft and warm. "I feel different," he said. "You are." He nodded, not just because of them, because of me. Then, almost like he'd been holding it in, "I'm in love with you, Jordan." My chest tightened. "I know," I whispered back. "I've been in love with you for a long time." He smiled, leaning in slowly. And when his lips touched mine, it wasn't like in the movies. It was realer, softer, like a moment that had been waiting its whole life to arrive. We stayed like that until the sky turned pink. Not hiding, not explaining, not shrinking. Just us. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. Just us. Just peace. But when Caleb checked his phone Sunday morning, he went still. Not scared, not angry, just hollow. I sat up in bed. "What is it?" He didn't speak, just handed me the screen. A name I'd never seen before. Ryan Travis. Then I read the message. "Hey, it's been a long time. I saw the video. We need to talk." "Who is that?" I asked gently. Caleb rubbed his eyes, voice barely audible. "My best friend, before everything." I stayed quiet, let him sit with it. "He was the first person I ever told," Caleb said. "Freshman year. One night we were up late gaming, and I just blurted it out. I waited, heart heavy. He didn't even flinch, just said, 'Cool, you still suck at Halo, though.'" He smiled for a second, then it faded. But a few weeks later, he started pulling away. One-word replies. No more late-night calls. No more hanging out. My chest tightened. "You think it was because you told him?" "I know it was." He stood up, pacing now. I never confronted him, just assumed he was done with me. Then he looked at the message again, and now he wants to talk. "What are you going to do?" I asked. He looked up at me, eyes uncertain. I think I need to hear what he has to say. The next day, they met at a small coffee shop across town. I waited outside in the car. 15 minutes passed, then 20, 30, when Caleb finally returned. His face was unreadable. I didn't ask anything right away. He got in, closed the door, sat in silence. Then, softly, he said he was scared. I turned to him. "Of what?" "Of being seen with me," he said bitterly, of being labeled, of the rumors, of people thinking he was gay too. I didn't say anything. He said he didn't know how to handle it, so he bailed, cut me off, pretended I didn't exist. He turned to me then, eyes glistening. You know what that does to a kid? When your best friend vanishes just because you trusted them. I reached over, held his hand. What did you say to him? He looked down. I told him he didn't deserve to know me anymore. Not the me I am now. Then, after a long pause, but I also told him I forgive him, because I need to stop carrying his shame on my back. Tears slipped down his cheeks, and for once, he didn't hide them. He cried too, Caleb whispered, said he'd regretted it every day since. That seeing me stand up for myself made him realize what a coward he'd been. I pulled him close, let him lean on me again. You didn't deserve what he did to you, I said softly, but I'm proud of you for facing it. He nodded into my shoulder. I feel lighter now, like I closed a door that's been cracked open for too long. That night, as we sat under the stars on my back porch, he looked over at me. I used to think I'd never be loved fully. Not like this, not openly. I squeezed his hand. You're not just loved. You're seen, exactly as you are. And under that quiet sky, we kissed again, not to escape, not out of fear, but to mark a chapter ending, and a new one beginning. The night of the senior showcase was supposed to be simple. Singing, spoken word, a few emotional performances, then go home. But Caleb had other plans. He didn't tell me until we were already there, standing in the backstage shadows, his name 3 slots away on the program. I signed up last minute, he said, voice calm but eyes nervous. Didn't tell anyone. My stomach dropped. Wait, what are you doing? He held up a folded piece of paper, something I've needed to say for a long, long time. Caleb. He turned to me and smiled. Soft, certain. Don't worry. I'm not breaking. I'm finally speaking. When his name was called, the auditorium fell silent. He walked out, hands shaking just a little, but his voice, steady. He stood center stage, unfolded the paper, looked at it once, then set it aside, and began speaking from the heart. Most of you think you know me, but the truth is you only knew the version I let you see. I spent years trying to be small, trying to hide my voice, my thoughts, my heart. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the ones who used to mock him leaned in. You laughed when you thought you could. You whispered when I walked by, and I let you, because I thought maybe if I stayed quiet long enough, you'd forget I was different. But I'm not different. I'm me, and I'm done apologizing for that. My throat tightened. Everyone was listening. Even the teachers at the back of the room looked stunned. I'm gay. And that's not news, but it is mine to say. And today, I say it without shame. He paused, looked straight at Eli, sitting in the second row, to the ones who hurt me. I forgive you, but I'm done carrying your guilt for you. And to the ones who stood beside me, even when it was hard, thank you. He looked at me then, held the moment. The entire auditorium turned with him. Jordan, you didn't just save me, you helped me see me. And I will never forget that. My eyes burned, my chest ached. I didn't even care that everyone saw me crying, because that moment, it was ours. He ended with a final line. This is who I am, not hiding, not ashamed, and definitely not alone anymore. The silence held for a second, then broke. Applause, loud, real. Some stood, some cried, but everyone heard him when he stepped off stage. I was waiting. He walked straight into my arms, and for the first time ever, we kissed without looking over our shoulders. No one booed, no one laughed, just a silence, respect, maybe even admiration. Afterward, in the parking lot, he leaned against my car and smiled. I feel free, he whispered. You are. Then he asked something that caught me completely off guard. Come with me this summer? I blinked. Where? Anywhere, he said. I just want to go somewhere that's ours. Somewhere new. Somewhere we don't have to explain anything to anyone. I nodded slowly. Yeah, let's go. And as we drove off that night, windows down, music up, fingers intertwined, it finally felt like we weren't running anymore. We were just living.